Welcome back to the SonicView XP Learning Center. This is video number 5 in the series. And in this video, we will show you how mixes work on the SonicView and N-1, which is another useful thing with when you have multiple mics or in the broadcast world. So let's talk about it and let's do it. SonicView has a system where individual channels are assigned to what we call a mix. There's 22 mix groups. Once assigned to a mix, the mix can be assigned to the individual outputs or use what we call modules or processors such as EQ, including the graphic EQ, compressor, parametric EQ, gate, and more. A mix is separate from the main outs and the other modules for the inputs. A mix has its own master, its own EQ, compression, like I talked about, and they will not affect the settings of the input channels that are going to go to the main output if you choose to do it that way. Even for more flexibility, a mix can be assigned to another mix for complex layering of mixes, for complex monitoring and speaker setup. So let me show you how to set up a mix, how to set up the individual outputs and use the modules or the processors. There's several ways to do it. I usually use 3 different ways. Let me show you the more visual way. I'll hit menu here. If mixer setup is not chosen, and I unchose it, now I just chose it again, choose mixer setup and go to mix send overview, pretty straight ahead. This is a graphic representation of mix 1. Again, there are many mixes that you can set up. This is specific to mix 1. And this is the send input level of our channels that are going to go to mix 1. Right now, you see the white box up here is 1 through 8, and I can choose 9 through 16, all the way through channels 40 through 44, which are the stereo N1 and stereo N2. So everything is here at your fingertip, at your touch, and at your view. Let's keep it on 9 through 16. Notice that all of the knobs are live, and so if we wanted to add a input channel 16 to mix 1, we're doing it. Notice this is on the home screen still. And while I turn it, I add the dB level channel 16 to mix 1, and it's also replicating that on the home screen. Same here, 15, so on and so forth, so on and so forth. If I choose 1 through 8, then let's go to 8. You can see that reflects that as well. So that's how to quickly do individual channels to mix 1. You may want to use a N-1 system. So let me hit the hamburger, the triple lines up in the upper right, and if I want to do them all at once, a level to all of the channels going to mix 1, you can see a menu pop up, and let's just set all, bang, to 0 dB and exit out of there. Now you see mix 1, every channel has been assigned to mix 1. So in an N-1 situation where you have multiple mics in a meeting or you have a host and they don't want to hear themselves, go to the on-off screen, and visually now you can say, okay, input 2, which is mic 2, I'm going to turn that off because they don't want to hear themselves. No problem. So it's easy to pick and choose an N-1 situation, which we also have called mix minus. Depends on, music folks or podcasters call it mix minus. Broadcasters tend to call it N-1. Same effect. So it's real time. And all of this now is being programmed and going to be memorized, and I could save that as a preset to mix 1. Okay, if we wanted to undo all of that to set them all off, just do that. And now we're back to everything is off. Let's turn it back on. Everything's back on. Escape out of here. Back to the input send levels. Again, on the input send levels, I can set them all to no input, which I just did in Bang. So there's a lot of ways to do this. This is the most visual way. Again, you can see this being reflected here. Touch that block, the white appears. Bang, 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 there it is, there it is, there it is. And by the way, if you want to go to a second mix here, just go to the second mix, and you can do exactly the same thing. So I can go to channel 9 here and send, or let's go to actually channel 25, and I'm sending that to mix 2 now. Okay, back to mix 1. Let's focus on mix 1, because that's the one we want to, there, got it. That's the one we want to play around with a little bit more. Another way to do this, by the way, let's go back to the home screen. And you can see it's all been reflected on the mix 1 send on the home screen, is I can now go to one of my user keys. The default of number 5 is send to mix channels 1 through 24. So if you want to do it this way with faders, you're doing it. So let's say all of your vocals are on 9 through 16, no problem. We are now sending all of the vocal mics to a mix 1, and that's all being reflected on the screen visually. You can see using the faders. And conveniently, and a great GUI is I can go to mix 2 now, and I can set all the drums, which are 1 through 8, to mix 2. That gets reflected here on that line. And mix 3 might be a couple of horn section players, and they're right here on 17, 18, and 19. And when I go to the home screen, just so that there's proof there you go. The third way to do it is just don't go to any menu, just literally use the home screen. This is mix 1, this is mix 2, mix 3, and 4. Just touch the block for mix 4, and you can use knobs right on the home screen to set up a mix for mix 4. So again, to recap, menu, mixer setup, mix send overview, everything's in one screen. Your on-off, your bus and your send levels. Go back to the home screen, use, let's say, layer key 5, send to mixes, layer key 6, send to mix 2, send to mix 3. Your model, your SonicView 1624 XP is going to have a different numerical sequence, but all these presets are here as well. Or finally, a recap, just touch the block for mix 2, then use the knob, and you're sending channel 14 in this case to mix 2. All right, I want to go back and focus on mix 1. So let's go back to the menu. Let's look at the visual way. Go to Mix Send Overview. So I've got my mixes set up. I want, on mix 1, I've got 9 through 16 because those are my vocal mics. All right. Now, there's processors available on every mix, independent for every mix, and those are called modules. So let's touch module here, and bang. We get all the processors. This is very similar to the input screen, but it's a little bit different because here we have a compressor for mix 1, send, EQ, which is parametric, and a graphic EQ. So the first thing that's new that we can do here is, you can see I can choose compressor, by the way, the send screen, the graphic EQ, or the parametric EQ. Let's go to the graphic EQ. We haven't seen that yet, really. And I'm going to do something that's brand new in our latest version and use send faders for the graphic EQ. There they are in all their glory. So it's a 31-band graphic EQ just for mix 1. And you can see it's all being reflected in our LED scribble strips. Mix 1, mix 1, mix 1 to make sure you're clear. and you can see the dB level for this particular band. And if you just wanted to flatten it out, you can actually hit flatten, and the fader reflects that as well. Okay, at this point, let me show you something that's really cool as well. Not only the faders on the Graphic EQ, which are capable, and by the way, you haven't given up your finger capability, and you can see the fader follows, or even using the knob. So there's a lot of different ways to do it. Is that you can have the RTA on, the real-time analyzer, on the module, like you can on the input modules as well. And I've got some material on my internal SD card. I've got a user key set up, which is going to hit play, and then you can see the RTA real time. So it's going to spread across all of the bands as a super RTA on all of the screens. And you can see how that works. So it actually chases the band of the material. So you can see that this particular frequency band is visually being reflected to the RTA. Very cool. And if you get stuck, just go back to flat all, and everything goes back to flat, the display and the faders. Okay, let me turn the RTA off. User key 2 does that, which turns off my SD card program material. Other things that you can do under Mix 1 is you can have a compressor. Again, this is just for Mix 1. Let's turn that on. And I'm not going to go through all the parameters. We have another video where we did that earlier on, where we went through all the modules. The functions are exactly the same as the input. You have your input gains, your knee control, auto makeup can be turned on. Auto makeup, makes up for the dB loss when you squash the signal in a decibel. It automatically calculates that and puts that in there. Change the threshold, things like that. So the compressor is there. It has a key in source as well. I can press that and have any other channel or another mix actually be the key in source. I'm going to leave it on self. Upper left will take me back to the previous screen. So very similar things. And I also have the parametric EQ on top of the graphic EQ. And again, the parametric EQ is exactly the same as the input, where I can choose the frequency and the decibel level, excuse me. And the next block up chooses the Q. So I can make it a fine Q or a very tight Q, which is I'm doing right now. Let me turn that off. I don't know if I want the graphic EQ and the parametric EQ at the same time. But it's possible. You can do all of that. Okay, so let's say we have our Mix 1. We've got it compressed. We have it EQ'd exactly how we want to use it. It's right now set to be 9 through 16 for the vocals. And we want to output that for some monitoring capability or in your monitors, or however you want to flow that. So right now, Mix 1 is set to analog 1 output. And I'm going to unlock that. And I can go to output and choose any of the analog outputs I want to flow Mix 1 through. So it's up to you. Yes, I do want to do that. Turn on 2 as well, turn off 1. So any of the 16 analog outputs on both a SonicView 16 and a SonicView 24 are available. And let's just keep it simple. I'll put it back on 1 because I want my vocals to go out 1. So you have all these different mixes that you can do this for. Let's go back one screen. Let's go back to one more. And you can have at it and do the same thing on Mix 2. So I can choose Mix 2. And you can see we have assigned our pseudo drums here to Mix 2, and kick, snare, all that good stuff. And press module, again, like I did for Mix 1. And send that to analog output 2, which I'm doing. I just turned that on. And also you have Dante and other things that you can flow that out to if you're using a stage box. The Dante, it'll go to output 2 on like on our SP16B stage box. So there basically you have how mixes work. It's very powerful. One final thing I can do is, let me go back one here. Let's go to menu, let's go to Mix Send Overview. Is I can go back, let's say, to Mix 1, which I just did. And I can go to Send Level Bus. I can actually take my Mix 1, which is my vocals, and layer that, excuse me, I didn't need to touch that, with Mix 2, which is my drums, just slightly. So I can layer here, what I'm doing is a mix with a mix. Sounds complicated, it's not. I'm basically just setting up another situation where my drums are slightly being mixed with the vocals. And I might want to go to Mix 3 for that and set it up so Mix 3 is a combination of the drums, Mix 1, a little bit of the vocals, Mix 2. So that's basically what I just did here. Again, I can hit Module and send that through analog output number 3, maybe for the rest of the band or some other situation, side fills, wedges, have at it. That's basically a overview, a fairly complete overview of what a mix is, how to use a mix, how to process a mix, and then how to send a mix to the individual outputs of a SonicView 24, including some of the new functions that we have, like if I hit Module here, like the graphic EQ, now being able to use send on faders. And let's turn that on in all its glory here. Mix 3, send on faders. You can't beat it. It's very cool.